Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. The Platform is where we do our live show 1 till 4 every afternoon, and this is the highlights thereof. Aussie. Oh, I can't even say it. Welcome to the show, people. Not the big show. That's Glenn Maxwell. And Australian cricket. The baggy green did it again. World champs at the one-day tournament for the 6th time. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Full praise their way. We don't have to like them, but we do got to admire them. I don't like them. And the Big Moan Monday is all about that. You'll hear why on the podcast, Simon O'Donnell, as well as that LBP, Matt Gunn, really positive out of Twizel today. It doesn't matter, how many times your stupid dumb sports teams lose during the year. If they happen to win a world championship, that stays with you forever. What Australia not celebrating today, though? Hamish McLennan, former chairman of Rugby Australia, dumped, just like his boy Eddie Jones, just like his Wallaby team were in the group stage at the World Cup. As well as that, F1 GP out of Las Vegas. You talk about the big show. Whoa. How about that? The lights, the glitz, the glamour. Max Verstappen didn't want to have a bar of it, but he still did what he does best, which is win it exactly like Australia did. That's the lesson in sport. No matter what you say, no matter how you say it, no matter when you say it, winners are grinners. As always, we begin the program, though, tablets in hand. I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Aussie. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
What did we learn over the weekend? We learned that Australia are the best cricket team in the world again. Always. This year alone, they've won the World Test Championship, the Ashes, they reclaimed the Ashes, and now the One Day Cricket World Cup. They are always the most consistent side in the world in this sport. They are what we used to think the All Blacks are, unbeatable. When it matters most, they win. They always win. They arrived at this tournament and they weren't expected to win, but in the end, they did win, and it's not that unexpected. Even when they're not at their best, they win. Even when they lack the real superstars, the biggest names, they still win. Even when you might think they might be vulnerable, like at this tournament, when they lost the opening 2 matches, they still win. They started 0-2. They lost to both South Africa and India. Couldn't score over 200 in either match. Yet they smoked both sides when it mattered most in the semis and the final. The Proteas were all out for 212 on Thursday night. India overnight for 240. And Aussie chased down both scores easily. Last night, they played the perfect game of one-day cricket. They won the toss and they did something completely un-Australian. They bowled first. Now, Aussie always bat first. They always bat first. Don Bradman famously said about every toss, 99% of the time you bat first, the other 1%, you bat first. But last night, no. Pat Cumming, solar panel Pat, he knew better. He said something how the pitch is going to flatten out and be better to bat on later on. He said, we'll bowl first and we'll be confident about chasing down whatever they post. He was right. Did India choke it? Yes, of course they did. Did South Africa choke the semi-final? Yes, of course. They also did. Psyched out. Mental disintegration, Steve Waugh used to call it. Whatever you want to label it, Aussie have got it. They have a grip on every other cricket side in the world. And once again, they proved it. They are never out of a tournament until they are actually out of the tournament. Last night, they bullied the bullies. They upset the favourites. They proved that when it comes to this, the ICC One-Day World Cup Cricket Tournament, there is and there never has been any other side in the world better than them.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Craig Cumming first up, F1 GP to talk, and then Brett McKay from the Raw out of Canberra talking Hamish McLennan. What's in the headlines, Lachlan?
Well, another coin of the swear jar for getting Brett McKay's name wrong.
Yeah, sorry about that, Brett. I'm sorry, mate. I even was on the podcast with you after the World Cup final. I think I got it right that night. About the only thing I did.
Tangled. These headphones, man. Always freaking tangled. Excuse me. All right, where do I start off? Well, I think I start off with the cricket.
Got to.
Cricket World Cup final, Australia, India. A heavily pro-Indian crowd inside the 132,000 capacity Narendra Modi Stadium was silenced. Travis Head leading the way for Australia with the bat. He smacked, what did he get in the end, Travis Head?
137 off 19 balls.
Off 120 balls.
Okay, all right, I made a mistake.
90.
About the only one Aussie made.
That. Yeah, 137 off 120
He doesn't even
balls.
look like a cricketer, that guy. He looks like the fat guy playing barbecue cricket.
There was a test series. It might have been the Ashes at the very start of last year in Australia when he sort of came in as this sort of... There was a debate over who should be playing as something like fifth in the batting lineup for Australia. It was him or it was Usman Khawaja, and he turned up in the first test and got a century, I'm pretty sure. He performs when you kind of least expect it, seems, Travis Head.
Okay, the wickets he got against the Yarpies in the semi-final, absolutely vital. And that catch last night off Sharma, that changed the game.
Brilliant.
And what a catch it was, mate.
Apart from Travis Head, who was the final wicket to fall, only a couple of runs before Australia ended up winning, so he'd be a bit filthy of himself that he couldn't stay unbeaten. Australia, Martin Devlin had 58. Other than that, David Warner 7, Mitchell Marsh 15, Steve Smith 4, Glenn Maxwell only faced one ball, but he got 2. So apart from Travis Head and Martin Labuschagne, really nothing from Australia at the crease. Then again, I mean, they won, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Victory for Australia, the 6th ODI World Cup title. They won by 6 wickets, 42 balls left in the match. Did superb with the ball. That first wicket of Shubman Gill shook the Indian lineup a little bit, and then it was the Travis Head one that I think really turned it in their favour because they got a third one soon after that. India finishing 240. First time during it feels like, I haven't got the numbers in front of me, it feels like the first time during the entire tournament, or one of only a few, when they didn't get around about 350 runs. They were just superb at the crease the whole tournament.
I think it was the only other time they got 200 and something, 220 or something, but they bowled out the opposite. Look, it's crazy, mate. Aussie didn't hit 200 in the 2 losses, in the opening 2 losses, right?
Yeah.
And then
Well, I don't mind. I was actually kind of going for Australia. Anyway, let's run through these next few nice and quick. If you haven't heard this already, you're probably living under a rock, but I'll read it anyway. Rugby Australia chairman Hamish McLennan has been ousted following an extraordinary late-night board meeting. Nikolai Højgaard claimed the biggest title of his golfing career this morning after running off 5 straight birdies down the stretch to win the season-ending World Tour Championship by 2 strokes. Kiwis Ryan Fox and Daniel Hillier finished in a share of 34th and 38th, respectively, after solid final rounds. Christchurch golfer Kazuma Kobori has finished 3rd after a 5/77 final round cost him a chance of victory at the Victorian PGA Championship. Former Black Ferns Sevens player Niall Williams-Guthrie, sister of Sonny Bill Williams, is joining the Blues for the upcoming Super Rugby Opiki season. Football Ferns coach Jitka Klimkova has named 3 debutants in her 24-player squad to take on the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023 quarterfinalist Colombia next month. And is it Bogota or Bogota?
I'd say Bogota. Or Bogota.
Those
Bogota.
3. Now, because this is on an episode of
something you have on your porch that you sit on.
This is the thing. It was in an episode of Friends where Joey's testing out a new game show he's going to be the host on, and then he asks a question about the capital of Colombia, and Chandler says one of them. He says Bogota or Bogota, and then Joey corrects him and says, no, it's the other one, but Joey's actually right. It doesn't matter. So that's why I don't actually know, because I can't remember if it's Bogota or Bogota.
You say tomato, I say tomato. It's one of them. One of them ones.
Those 3 debutants, as I say, for the Football Ferns for this upcoming clash with Colombia. Macy Fraser, who scored that sensational free kick the other weekend for the Phoenix. Sunderland midfielder Katie Kitching, and Canberra United forward Ruby Nathan. They're the new faces, 3 new faces in the squad. Speaking of the Wellington Phoenix women, their winning run is over. 1-0 defeat away to the Central Coast Mariners in the Women's A-League. The Breakers played yesterday afternoon. They won on Thursday night, so maybe, form is picking up.
I watched that game yesterday too, mate.
Yeah, no. 69-65, the Breakers lost to the Illawarra Hawks in Auckland. They're now 3-7 on the Australian NBL season so far. A very disappointing start for the Breakers. Max Verstappen won again, the Red Bull driver, 3-time world champion elite for this year, of course. He won in Las Vegas, the first Grand Prix in Las Vegas since, I think, the 80s. They've actually had 2 races there before in Formula 1. He finished first. Second was Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. Third, Sergio Perez. And for the time being, Martin, that's what's making news.
Devlin.
Oh, my goodness me!
The platform.
Aussie did it again. It was almost inevitable, wasn't it? They lost the first 2 matches at the One Day Cricket World Cup, but when it matters most, and this is the thing about Australian cricket, when it matters most, former Black Cap Craig Cumming, he's played them, he gets it, he understands it, he knows it. Let's go right back to the toss. Were you surprised when Solar Panel Pat said that they would bowl when they won that toss, mate? I was amazed. I just thought, of course you're going to bat, aren't you? That's what Aussies do. And then India said that they actually wanted to bat, so everyone got what they wanted. But why Australia? Why would they have gone with that call, do you think?
I think in Ahmedabad, the dew factor does come into play. And I think they knew that. I mean, you've got a lot of experience there and, that first 10 overs, but they probably backed themselves in that middle period on a used pitch. Again, probably just backed themselves, Marty. They just said, we're happy to bat second. We think the pitch will get a little bit better, a little bit of dew. We don't mind chasing. And we've got a very, very good bowling attack. I mean, Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins, outstanding. And then the way Cummins did his bowlers, at one stage I think he made 9 bowling changes in 10 overs. I was watching it, and one over. But let's go back to that catch. The whole thing could have looked a lot different if, Travis Head didn't take that catch. Sharma just hit Maxwell for 6, he hit it for 4, and then he tried to go again. He doesn't take that. Sharma gets another 50, then India are getting 320, and it's game over. That was probably the case. So the catch was the most important part of that game.
Yeah, look, and you look at Travis Head, and I look at the crucial wickets that he got also in the semi-final where he came on to bowl, got hit for a couple of 4s, and then he picked up. It wasn't Miller, it was the other guy, wasn't it? It was I can't even remember his name, but whoever Miller was batting with when South Africa were trying to resurrect that innings. And a couple of things about this, they just seem to have players that every game, 1 or 2 of them stand up. And as you say, I mean, they don't all have to be consistent all the time, because we saw Zampa getting hit by the South Africans all over the show, but then he turns around and plays well the next game. They just seem to be that classic cricket team that 2, 3 of them always have an outstanding game. The rest will do enough.
Yeah, and what they also do, and behind the scenes, they're all just developing skills. So Travis Head hasn't been known as an off-spin bowler, so he's a batter. So what they do is say, go away and work on your off-spin. We want to help you because you just never know. And if we go to India, there's nothing like having a top-order batter who can bowl some part-time spin. And some have tried it, like Steve Smith was a leggy, and they fought away. Labuschagne had a period, but they just developed. The other thing is you look at them, and they're very confident within themselves.
Yep.
But again, you're none from 2, Marty. You're starting to knee knock a wee bit there, surely. And then I heard, might have been Mitchell Marsh say, we were none from 2, and Sri Lanka were 120 for none in that third game.
Yeah.
But they've obviously got the ability within their team, and McDonald's done a wonderful job. All this talk about Langer and getting rid of Langer, and Langer should have still been nearby. It's funny, listen to Matthew Hayden last night. He was the biggest cheerleader. Ricky Ponting, they're all Langer fans, said he was treated poorly, but this guy McDonald's turned up, and now he's got 2 trophies in the cabinet. Unbelievable. So, but they've obviously got something behind the scenes, Marty, that just works. And yes, we don't want to play a cricket like them, and we're not the same people as them, but you've just got to admire the way they go about with their skill and their ability to win big, big moments and win big, big tournaments, because they do it.
Craig Cumming is
as much as we hate it.
Yeah, former Black Cap, former Test and one-day player for New Zealand. The 6th time that Australia have won the one-day World Cup. India sweeping all before them, mate. They were 10-0. But didn't you suspect the whole time that they were going to have one game where things weren't going to go well? Now, if you look at that scorecard, Rohit Sharma, captain, 47 off 31. He bludgeoned it. He did exactly what he should have done and what he did do the whole tournament. He stood and delivered. But then Gill went cheaply. Kohli came in and he was really uncertain. He was scuffing around. But then, you expect Shreyas to score big. He didn't. Rahul got 66, and then the rest of them all fell away. And this was an Indian batting line. Had they been tested enough, Craig? I suppose that's a long-winded question. Or this team just eased too easily into the final?
No, I don't think you can win 10 games in a row when you've got to play everyone and the quality of teams to say that they haven't been tested. I think they certainly were. But what happened was they had the goods. The difference was, you go and watch it, Australia kept coming at them. They kept coming at them, and they come at them with so many different options. And so even when you look at New Zealand, we went hard. We had Southey and Bolt. We didn't quite have success. And then they went at Ferguson. Then they went at Satner. Then we didn't really have a lot else. Whereas Australia last night, they went hard. Then they brought on Maxwell. He picks up a wicket. Cummins is then going harder at the other end. Then he brought on Mitchell Marsh, Zampa. Then Head. Australia always kept going at them. And one thing, I think I said to you last week, for New Zealand to beat India, you got to pick up wickets the whole way through. And because Australia don't sit back and probably defend, they attack the whole time with their mentality. It just kept putting them under pressure. And it got to that stage, you could see with Kohli, he had that look in his eyes as if to say, oh, gee, this is not going to plan. What do I do? And he was working exceptionally hard, but they weren't trying to dominate. They were just taking what they could get for a period of time. They were below. They went to 5.5 and over before Kohli got out. And, they were going so well. It was a different look in their eye. You could even, someone said it was 130,000. There wasn't 130,000 there, Marty. I think I read this morning it was about 90,000 turned up. But it was deadly silent. You must be doing something pretty well if you're keeping 90,000 Indians quiet. And they did that. And as I say, they've just got this ability to, I don't know, they look like they're running a bit harder. When they attack in the field, they attack it a little bit more. When they throw the ball in, they seem to throw it a bit harder and a bit straighter towards the batter. Just all those little things that, give them that edge. And you say six one-day titles.
Yeah, incredible.
What's the next best? The West Indies, what have they got? 2? Maybe England have got 2. That's just, it's an amazing stat. And remembering you've got to play everyone now. So you can't say it's been the luck of the draw. Not like rugby and those things. They play everyone in the last, so they're just so damn good.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Moan. I'm moaning all the time. Oh, yeah. I got to moan on, all right. It's Monday. I got to moan on. As much as I have started the show praising Australian cricket and the fact that once again they have won the One Day Cricket World Cup, Simon O'Donnell, the former Australian baggy green, shut up. Who cares what you think, mate? Who cares what you think about how our guys, the Black Caps, behave? We're not you. And we're glad about that. You heard about this? You know the story? The former Aussie cricketer, who's now a radio host in Australia, hacking into the Black Caps for being too nice to Virat Kohli when Kohli cramped up in our World Cup semi-final loss. At one stage, he threw his bat down and one of our blokes went and picked it up from him. And O'Donnell was offended at that, saying something like, it's a contest, it's a war, mate. There's no friendliness, there's no sportsmanship, don't help him, don't talk to him, blah, blah, blah. Sure, that's you. And that's why no one likes you, mate. The whole cricketing world loathes your team and its BS, fake-ass pretty boy pretend stuff. And we all know it's a bunch of bollocks. We all know that you're a bunch of frauds. You're all multi-millionaires who won't do anything unless you get paid to. You won't even do your media without being paid to. You're not hard. You're just a bunch of dicks and you behave like it every time you play. So whatever, pal. Who cares? Not us. You continue to play rough and tough, Simon. That's cool. You be you, girl. You go, girl. You do you. But that's also why the rest of us laugh in your face, mate. No one likes you and no one respects you.
Devlin.
I'm as bad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The platform.
Hamish McLennan talked one hell of a game. Oh, he's going to take Australian rugby here. He was going to do this. He's going to sign all the rugby league players, create another cross-code war, all of that. Well, in the end, the peasants revolted. They tossed him out. 6 separate Australian Rugby Union provinces writing a letter to the Association National Board saying, get rid of this goon. We don't want him no more. Even as late as last night, McLennan was still talking to the media saying, I got the numbers. Let's just put it to a vote. Well, they did put it to a vote, and guess what? They no longer want you to be the top bloke. Brett McKay, the Raw, out of Canberra, joins us. No great surprise. We were messaging each other over the weekend, Brett, and I was just going back through some of those messages today, and the narrative changed almost on an hourly basis.
Yeah, it's the way we do it in Australian rugby, mate. You know that. Yeah, look, it was an extraordinary, 48, 72 hours, really, wasn't it? As soon as the letter came through from the States and they released that fairly detailed media release, which included the letter, his position was the dictionary definition of untenable at that point. When 6 of the 8 states and territories are saying, we no longer have confidence in your ability to do the job, that's a fairly damning indictment. But for his reaction to that to be, well, I'm not going anywhere, speaks, I think, volumes for the character that is Hamish McLennan, and at times his inability to read the room. It was an extraordinary series of events. And even on Saturday there was the 2 board meetings initially. He wasn't invited to the first one on Saturday morning, and asked for and was granted a 24-hour extension of that 5 p.m. Saturday deadline. That became 5 p.m. yesterday. But one of his first moves in that was to go straight to the Australian, straight for the Australian Financial Review papers, and essentially call for the members of the ACT and Queensland rugby unions to all call their own EGMs and roll their chairman. And that was an even more bizarre move, I thought, because, as I mentioned, his inability to read the room, there's digging in, there's doubling down, and there's what Hamish McLennan did over the weekend. And there was just, the longer this carried on, there was just no way it could continue. And it didn't surprise me in the end that there was an RA board vote that brought him undone. There was no way they could let that go to an EGM and let it carry on for another 60 days potentially. So I think in the end, the obvious decision's been made. And now, as we've said more than a few times in the last 15 to 20 years within Australian rugby, we get on with the job of trying to rebuild the game again.
I want to talk about Daniel Herbert because I've met this guy and he was pretty impressive when I did meet him. But just back to McLennan, Brett McKay from the Roar out of Canberra is with us. We don't have a single figure like that in New Zealand rugby. Like our chairman as a chairwoman, as Dame Patsy used to be the Governor General, and they brought her in because they wanted more gender equality on the board. Then you've got Mark Robinson as a CEO who struggles to decide what colour socks he's going to wear in the morning, and I don't mean to be disrespectful by that, but he can't make any decisions. He just calls for reviews. Yet you've got one guy. It's like Peter V'landys. You always seem to have one guy who's in charge. Has that always been the case, and is Herbert going to have that kind of power and authority himself?
No, Daniel Herbert's going to be a very, very different chair to what Hamish McLennan is, and the Peter V'landys comparison is a very apt one. He's very much he's made himself very much the face of the NRL hierarchy here. Anthony Abdo, I beg your pardon, the CEO is very clearly number 2. This move, now that McLennan is gone, Phil Wall will become the very obvious leader now for Australian rugby, and that's frankly the way it should be. The CEO should be the one out in public, taking the barbs, making the announcements. Not the chairman, the chair and the board largely sit behind the scenes, putting in place the structures and the strategies to take the game forward, and the CEO is charged with delivering on those, and that is the way it is for not just sport. You can pick pretty much any business situation that has a board and CEO type situation. That's the way sports are typically run, and so somehow RA ended up in this situation where the chairman became more and more bullish over his tenure and started becoming more front and centre, and particularly these last 12 months he was very keen to let, I think, everyone know who really was making the decisions, and even if those decisions weren't necessarily in line with things that have been said, and you think back now to Andy Marinoff, who was rolled as CEO back in April or May, and he objected to 2 major Hamish McLennan decisions. That was hiring Eddie Jones and signing Joseph Suaalii, right. Both of them to big money contracts, and ultimately, Andy Marinoff now is looking. His judgment is looking a whole lot stronger than it did before, and that's not to say that it didn't look strong before. He was just never allowed to show any sort of opposition to the chairman, and now all of a sudden states have decided, you know what, enough's enough, and through a gradual build-up of everything, it's not just the centralisation, it's not just the Wallabies' performance, it's not even just hiring Eddie Jones on a 5-year contract that he didn't see 9 months out of. It's a multitude of things. Yeah, for the minor states, South Australia, Tasmania, Western Australia, not the Western Force, but Western Australia, the Northern Territory, they were in line to get extended programs that they could implement at community level, and then were suddenly told when the private equity interests walked away that, we're sorry, guys, that money is just not there and we can't give it to you. And so that was programs that they couldn't deliver to their grassroots games in their state. So that's for the smaller states who don't have the professional game to draw money in. That's a significant part of their budget that was just disappeared overnight. So they had their agreements. There's obviously Queensland, the ACT, were not happy with the way centralisation was being not so much pushed through, but rather bulldozed completely, and made those feelings known. And so now I think what we'll end up with is probably what should have always been the focus to start with, and that is to centralise what can be centralised, the high-performance programs, so the players, the coaches, the S&C staff, training programs, recovery programs, all that sort of stuff. And, the states will still run their Super Rugby programs themselves, and that's the way it should be. You can't tell me that the best way to market a game in Canberra or Brisbane or Perth or Melbourne is out of an office in Sydney. That doesn't make sense to me at any level. Now I think we'll get to a common sense point of view, and I actually think that the HP centralisation might actually go through faster now than it might have before.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
General Chitty Chat is the Tight Five. Separate topics in about 60 seconds on each of these, and when the bell goes, we move on to the next topic. Who's going to score next, Lachlan? The All Whites or the Football Ferns? Or will neither of these underperforming New Zealand's national teams score again? I doubt whether either will this year unless it's off the field, because certainly not on. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Why, when it comes to these tournaments, are they so goddamn good? I'm going to give you some facts and figures about that Australian one-day cricket side, people. They're going to blow your mind how good they have been, especially on the road. Is that punishment fair for Everton Football Club? Because if that's fair, Lachlan, that means Manchester City should be stripped of their titles. The Breakers. Great win Thursday night. What the hell went wrong yesterday at home? Held to 65 points by a team that can't win on the road. And do you at all feel any kind of empathy or sympathy for Hamish McLennan? Let's start there, because after listening to Brett McKay from The Raw, once again, brilliant coverage of this story from our man from Canberra. Hamish McLennan, look, he rides a fine line, doesn't he? I don't know the bloke at all, but do remember that he was giving it to us over the last 12 months about how, he was standing staunch against New Zealand rugby, didn't want to do any deals about Super Rugby and so forth. We can manage on our own. We don't need you guys. We're making a $100 million profit out of the Lions Tour and another $100 million out of the Rugby World Cup. We're going to poach every player from Rugby League. I suppose, a bit of shade and Freud here. If you behave like that, talk like that and act like that, well, if it does backfire on you, you're going to get a few in the back.
Yeah, but that is... the main thing for me is not a lot of sympathy based from the perspective that you are there to do a job, and part of your job is hiring other people in the organisation to do their job, and none of that has worked out.
No, it hasn't.
The head coach that you brought on board did his best really to get out of the job by having job interviews with other rugby unions around the world, which was just ridiculous. Before the World Cup. Came in and gutted out the team and tried to bring in all this young talent, and probably shouldn't have done that because it really hurt the Wallabies' chances at the World Cup of getting out of the group. They had to beat Fiji, mate. That's all they had to beat Fiji. They had to beat Wales as well. Wales were pretty average.
Well, they could have lost to Wales and beaten Fiji, and they would have got through.
Exactly. So there's not a lot of sympathy, and clearly, we don't really know a lot because we're on the outside looking in, but from inside, clearly there was not a lot of cohesion in terms of the staff and shared goals and what they wanted to achieve because the CEO stepped down.
Standing up to him, mate? Where were all of those?
Well, you get someone like Andy Marinos, who was the CEO, who used to be the CEO of SANZO, the invisible organisation. That's right. Instead of really standing up, he might have stood up, but he just left. He resigned out of the blue.
I look at every single other person who was involved in Rugby Australia, on the board, whoever appointed Hamish McLennan. Where were you when this guy was behaving like this?
Well, a couple of things. One, he's the chair, so outside of the board, you can't stand up to him because he'll sack you. He comes across as that kind of person, a bit like Eddie Jones, I actually quite like Eddie Jones, but where he's quite brash in his business, that if you did stand up to him, I think he could just, like George Steinbrenner, the Yankees owner, where he could just sack you just like that.
George Steinbrenner. Okay, every time you mention that, I just keep thinking of the guy at Seinfeld. The one with his back.
His back turned the whole time, and Larry David's actually doing his voice.
That's it,
So there's not a lot of sympathy there, but at the same time, the board might have been having chats to him in the background. You never know.
Who's going to score first, the Football Ferns or the All Whites? And are these two...
I plead the fifth.
Are these two... the most underachieving national sports sides in New Zealand. Take away the 1-0 win against Norway, and what have the football ferns done in the last 2 years apart from lose every game?
They beat Vietnam.
There you go, not score a goal. The All Whites, from what I've been told, the last camp, previous one to this, in Spain, casinos, golf courses, and no meetings, not even before the game.
Yeah.
And then you watch them. I mean, I'd be one of the few in New Zealand that got up and watched them play Greece because I love the All Whites. I've always loved this team. We might as well call ourselves the Buttocks, mate, because you know what we do? All we do is get the ball, turn around, and pass it backwards and show the opposition our bums. That's what we do. Joe Bell, the captain, mate, face forward towards the other goal and pass the ball forward once in your friggin' life. Create a chance, score a goal.
Yeah, they're pretty disappointing.
Well, they're very disappointing. These are the two most talented squads, apparently, that we've ever had. But they don't play like it. They play like they believe that they're most talented. Both of these teams. I think though it's just so disappointing. You can't have that many professional players in a... Having said that, I suppose, we'll make all the excuses in the world. It's so hard. They've all got to get together. They have no time to play together. And then. Well, in that case, shut up or put up and score a friggin' goal. Everton, was that punishment fair?
Pretty harsh. I mean, was it overspending or
They overspent.
over lost money, if that
That's
makes
it.
sense?
Yeah, okay. So
By
you're only
£20
allowed to
million
lose.
pounds.
You're only allowed to lose
105
million or something over
Yeah.
a period of about 5 years, right? As a club,
And they
because
lost
all of these
100
clubs
and-
are owned by billionaires who just underwrite them. They lost 125. That might not be exact. It might have been 119, 130, but whatever it was 20 million over the limit. And so that 20 million has now cost them 10 competition points. So
yeah, that's harsh. 10 points for a team that's fighting off relegation. That is harsh.
And Man City at the moment are facing 115 separate breaches,
that's the separate
right?
thing.
Of
So-
the same thing, though, financial fair play.
Look, there's rules, and within this specific occurrence of Everton, they've broken the rules,
Yes,
so
they have.
they should be penalised.
Okay.
In saying that, if you're going to penalise them, penalise all the teams that are breaching financial fair play rules.
Mate,
City have been doing it since 2009.
Okay, and this is the same as the
09.
this is the same as the NRL salary cap breaches. Everyone does it.
Yeah.
And-
I love the NRL one. No, they have third-party agreements,
That's right,
which is
third-party
apparently legal.
agreements. We'll deal with this a bit more tomorrow because we've got a couple from the Talking Toffees podcast on. A couple of really Evertonian lads going to talk about this. Breakers, great win on Thursday night. And
Very
I
good
thought,
one. On the road as well.
2-6 going away to the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers. I was thinking this is such a pressure game. Win this game, turn the season around. They did win that game. I switched on the telly to watch them last night or yesterday afternoon. Lachlan, the Illawarra Steelers. Hawks. Sorry, the Steelers were the league
Rugby
team.
league team, yeah.
Illawarra Hawks hadn't won an away game since January last year, and that was against...
Breakers.
That's right. And then they come here. They hold us to 65 points. We score 100 points a game, mate.
Well, not really. No, we don't. No one in the NBL scores 100 a game, I don't think, on average. But they certainly score more than 65. But looking at some of the numbers, the Breakers are shooting the ball, last night or yesterday, very poorly, 33%. Free throw percentage was bad as well. They missed 4 from the line. I don't think there's any excuse for missing free throws in basketball.
No, that's why they call it a free throw.
Exactly. Free. Yeah. But the one glaring one is they were out-rebounded by 8. And if you're not crashing the boards, it means that, one, you're giving up second chance points, which the Breakers didn't do a huge amount of yesterday, or you're not protecting, you're not giving yourself second chance points, or you're not protecting your defensive positions.
Gave up the offensive rim, man. And especially in that last 5 minutes, just couldn't find a basket and were owned. Really disappointing. 3-7. Season not over yet. Don't even start me, okay? Can come back, but it's going to require a hell of a lot to do that. One more quickly before we go to our man Scott Bailey from AAP and talk more about India winning the One Day World Cup overnight. And Rahul Patil will join us, as he always does, around about 3:30 to wrap it all up for us as well. Say it. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Say it, Lachlan.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Say the other bit.
Oi, oi, oi. Isn't that originally a Welsh chant? It's not actually Australian.
Oh,
Seriously, no, seriously.
It drove me crazy during the Sydney Olympics. Everywhere you went, everyone was just screaming and shouting it all the time. But
Well,
they've
you
got
were
every
in
reason
Australia.
to.
I mean,
Do you know why, ladies and gentlemen? They've won 6. Since 1987, there's been 87, 92, 99, 03, 07, 11, 15, 23. 8 World Cups.
sorry.
They've won 6. And do you know what? 5 of those have been on the road. They've won them in India, England, South Africa, the Windies, and now India again.
they are the champions of
They
World
are
Cups.
the champions.
Aren't they?
They are. There is no better team that plays that particular format of the sport that is better than them.
Devlin,
You gotta love sport.
the platform.
Scott Bailey from AAP, Australian cricket writer, covered the Ashes for us in England. That was victorious. The World Test Championship, well, they won that as well, didn't they? And then, once again, the One-Day Cricket World Championship. I don't know what the future of this particular format of the sport is, or whether it has one. It certainly has one every 4 years. And Australia own it. And they owned it in front of 130,000 screaming, rowdy, but ultimately silent Indian fans. I genuinely say, what a fantastic effort from your team. It was something to admire, mate. 6 World Cup wins now and 5 of those on the road.
Yeah, incredible. And I was having this conversation with my boss a little earlier. I wasn't alive for the 1987 one, but that was obviously an incredible win given where Australian cricket was at the time and on the subcontinent, and Australia's record over there then was arguably worse than what it is there now. But the 1999 World Cup always stands out to me as the most incredible one given the circumstances and what Australia had to do. 03, 07 were pretty dominant, 2015 at home. But this tournament, when you consider they were 0-2, they had an incredible number of injuries. They couldn't pick their best team until the semi-final stage. They looked all at sea in that third game of the tournament against Sri Lanka. It looked like it was going to be all over. To go from there to winning a 6th World Cup, as you say, and their 5th in the last 7 tournaments is just an incredible effort.
Scott, I've got so many questions here, mate, and I wanted you to compare these other sides, but I was just saying that stat to the people. 87, you won it in India, 99 in England, and then to South Africa in 03 and 07 in the Windies, and that, just such a dominant side. Ponting a century in 03, and then Gilly a century in 07. 15, you win it at home, and then again on the road. Looking at the teams that have won it in the past, compared to the names on the team sheet that win it this time, is this I suppose, not an underrated side, but perhaps an undervalued side in terms of the superstars that you don't have?
Yeah, I think so. I was actually, just as I started to begin speak to you, I was just beginning a piece then, which essentially says that I think, this isn't the Australian side of the turn of the century where the Wars, Vaughan, McGrath, Gilchrist, Ponting, that's arguably across, both white and red ball cricket, the greatest side or very close to the greatest side ever assembled. But this team has a way to win tournaments and to win big games, and to consistently be, in the big games. You know what I mean? Like they've retained 2 Ashes series in England without winning a series, but they still retain them in Test cricket. And then when it comes to the white ball formats, I think it was the same story in 2021 in the T20 World Cup where they weren't the best side on paper by any means. They came into the tournament ranked 6th or 7th, but they just know how to get to the back end of tournaments and how to give themselves a chance to win tournaments. And they also perform incredibly well under pressure. It's pretty rare this Australian side goes to water, so when they get themselves to a final, they tend to fare pretty well in it. And that was really evident last night, especially when you consider the pressure that was on India. And India's, let's be honest, a really poor record when it comes to World Cup finals, across all formats at the moment. Australia put themselves in the position and then were able to make so many cool, calm decisions under pressure to win themselves the World Cup. So, yeah, it's hard to compare across eras, but I think what this team's been able to do with the talent they've got is incredible. And especially, too, when you consider that this is a side that's gone through a lot in the last 10 years and in a number of difficult situations in the Australian team, but also a side that grew up watching the most dominant team of our era, and then went through a period where Australian cricket was in a fairly decent hole there at the early 2010s. So what they've been able to do in recent years has been incredible.
What was the mood of the Australian public towards this team after losing the first 2 matches? Then they win 7. Was the mood that, genuinely people believe that, hey, they're in the semi-finals, they can close this thing out? Because do remember the 2 teams that had beaten them were South Africa and India.
Yeah, there was a lot of panic, I think, among the Australian public who were watching it. They probably got a little bit lucky, in that this tournament began while the Rugby World Cup was still ongoing. So right. I think most of Australia's frustrations were directed at Eddie Jones and the Wallabies. And obviously cricket is a far bigger sport here than
what rugby union is, but the Wallabies mess probably saved them a little bit at the start, I think. And the fact that those two matches were both day-night matches, they finished at 3 a.m., it was almost like by the time Australia realised this tournament was on, Australia was 0-2. And it's kind of gone from then on in, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for those who were paying close attention to it, I think there were a lot of concerns. There were real questions about the planning of the tournament. I mean, they dropped Alex Carey after one match, which, Australia had never dropped a wicketkeeper at a men's World Cup before. So to do it after one match raised some serious questions about what they were doing in their planning for this tournament. Then they decided to take Travis Head, or pick Travis Head for the tournament while he was still at home nursing a fractured hand, and obviously in hindsight that was a great decision.
Brilliant idea, yeah.
At the time there were some questions asked about that and just generally where the team was going. I mentioned it before, but sort of halfway through Sri Lanka's innings in Australia's third match, I think Sri Lanka were none for 110 or so.
It's for 121, I think it was, mate. Something like that. Yeah, crazy.
Right, yeah. And at that point, I think my memory of social media was alight with, geez, this is a disgrace if they're going the exact same way as the Wallabies. And obviously, since then, they haven't lost a game and done a pretty decent job of it.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. F1 GP Las Vegas didn't get off to the most auspicious start. Manhole covers bursting their way up and out of the tarmac on the strip, the main straight. But when it actually came to the race, well, the pictures said it all. That's why they went to Las Vegas, people. Max Verstappen had a fair bit of moaning to do. Was that fair or not? I thought he just should shut up, put up, because, this is the reason he gets paid so much. Vincenzo Landino disagrees. Complaining about, where it was and the big show that it is, I thought there was a lovely irony where on the podium they had all three of the first, second, third place finishers then turning around and watching the light show at Palacio, because that's exactly what he was complaining about. But ultimately, does he just have to put up and shut up? This is why you get paid so much money, Max. This is reviving interest in your sport. You throw in the Drive to Survive program, the Netflix. This is the next generation, isn't it, of fans? And it may not be exactly how you want it, and it might not be the most traditional circuit and all of that kind of thing. But this is what's, the reason you get so handsomely rewarded for what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm actually with Max on this one. I feel like, yes, everything you said is accurate, but I don't know that it's a driver's responsibility to do anything, number one, that he doesn't want to do. But number two, I want that driver to be the best at what he does, which is drive the car, race, be an absolute stone cold killer on the track. And that's what Max is. Again, I'm not a Max fan at all. I'm not a Red Bull fan. I don't like that they're dominating, but I respect him as a driver. And Max focuses on, I just want to win. And I don't think a lot of people understand or want to understand that mindset. When you see someone who's just a stone cold killer, they don't care about anything else. They just want to go race, and that's it. And if you look at Max's past and how he was raised, he was raised to be a race car driver. It was never about the pomp and circumstance. He doesn't really care about any of that, and he conducts himself as such. Right? I don't know that there's much of a hypocritical aspect to Max. It's not like he's, he doesn't even do it during the season. Like, he's not really involved in a lot of the marketing stuff. He doesn't want to be, right? So it's not like he just hated on Vegas or didn't want to do Vegas. He genuinely does that all the time. So I feel like you can't really. You can't blame him for wanting to be a race car driver, and you've got to give him credit for focusing on what actually matters. I've said this numerous times. If you give us good racing, that's all the drama you actually need. You don't need to, manufacture drama when you have really good racing. And if everybody was, like a Max or like a Lewis, and we'd have a lot more non-manufactured drama. We'd have really good racing, and people and the sport would grow without all of this other stuff.
Finally, then, just in terms of Las Vegas, you can't not like, can you, the sights and the sounds that you see? The pictures were what everyone was looking at and was tuning in to see. All of the casinos, the Sphere, just the party town that it is. And I just thought it looked brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it was Las Vegas, right? That was, for people that have never been to Las Vegas, for people that, don't understand Las Vegas, like, that was Las Vegas. That is what it's all about. I know a lot of Europeans felt like it was overkill, but that's what Las Vegas is. If you don't know or you've never been there, that's exactly what Las Vegas is all about. The getting married by an Elvis impersonator in a little chapel. I mean, yes, it was cheesy, but that's what Las Vegas is. You can't run away from that. So, yeah, I think it was quintessential Las Vegas. They did a very good job leaning into that. And I'll tell you this, they did a really good job with all the marketing around leading up to the Grand Prix. The minute we were done with the last race, and it turned into, Las Vegas as the next one up, it was full on marketing press everywhere. Celebrities and went all in. I mean, and you haven't seen this with any other Grand Prix, and they went all in on the Vegas thing. So that was actually really cool to see. And then everything around the track and everything around all the marketing opportunities that Vegas has to offer were, absolutely next level, which is, again, to be expected. But it was fun to see. Maybe there's a few things they could dial down, but for the most part, I thought I'd give it about an 8 out of 10 if I had to score it.
LBP, TMG, that's Twizel's Matt Gunn, been really positive. Well, what a crap year he's had in sport. Until overnight, when, of course, Australia win. Now, forget about the doggies. Forget about every other disappointment that he might have had. Forget about the Wallabies crashing out of the World Cup. Cricket is Australia's #1 sport. That is like rugby here in New Zealand. And that Australian cricket team is what our All Blacks used to be. The last 4 years, of course, rather a lot of ignominy for our #1 national team. But this Australian side, they don't even need the superstars. They just go to these tournaments and they TCB. Take care of business. They rolled you in the round robin. So did South Africa. But the two teams that you beat to win the tournament when it mattered most were South Africa and India. And to be fair, Matt, you smoked both games.
Yeah, we smoked them both. Travis Head, superb man of the match, 137. Strike rate of 114, bowled a couple of overs for 2 runs and over, but he has just come on in leaps and bounds. And I tell you what, we've just had some amazing individual performances at the times that it matters.
Yeah. And that's cricket. That's cricket, though, isn't it? You see, it's one of those weird kind of team games that all you need is 2 or 3 of your guys to stand up every match. And different players do it for Australia. I look at Travis Head, mate. He looks as though he should be playing Saturday. And no disrespect to the Twizel Pavilion, but he's the fat guy out in the middle, isn't he? Who's actually smacking boundaries and everyone think, I was that guy, I could be that guy. He doesn't look like an athlete.
No, and we love them. How does he made it? What's he doing? Why is he out there? There were questions about whether he should have been there.
Yeah.
Well, he showed that he should be there. Mitchell Marsh, amazing performance during the tournament too. And you stand up. That's what you need. I mean, that's the interesting thing about cricket is, unlike rugby, Martin, where you have to hold the line, you need 15 players all in unison at one time. Everyone can be off their game, and you can have a bowler has an absolute blinder, and one of your batsmen just does something extraordinary, and you win the game. And India will be ruining their score. 240.
Oh, well short, 60 or 70 short. You needed 300. But when Solar Panel Pat said, I'm bowling first, I heard you from Twizel going, what are you doing, mate? Mate?
Always bat first.
Always bat first.
Yeah, I know. I mean, these are the things about sport too, is you think you know, but you don't know.
Don't know jack,
Look,
mate.
You bat first. We're going to back ourselves, and then we'll get the runs easily. 241 for 4, 7 overs spare for the Australian team.
You were 47 for 3. There was hope for the rest of the world at that stage. But you know what? And this is the comparison I'm making. It's very much like Ireland playing the All Blacks in the quarterfinal. they had won 18 in a row. They were the best team in the world. They were playing like they were the best team in the world, but they hadn't, in that tournament, come up against any adversity. They hadn't been behind. And when that started to happen, it was very clear they had no plan B. They had no change-up. They didn't know what to do when what they did do wasn't working.
Yeah. And when you come up against the team that's been on a roll on the way home, it's hard to overcome that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of these tournaments. It's, the last 6 weeks does seem to drag out a little bit, but it's over again. Australia, for the sixth time,
Sixth time, yeah. I mean, that's just nuts, mate. That's okay. You know, put everything else aside you've done this year. Retain the Ashes, win the World Test Championship, got to the semi-finals, I think, at the T20 as well, and what were the holders before. But in one day cricket, which you and me have grown up on, and there's something very special about this particular tournament. And I go back to those windy sides, 75, 79, and I go back to those Aussie sides, 03 and 07. Mate, this team on paper doesn't rank along those sides, yet this is the amazing thing about Australian cricket. You don't care who you select, as long as that person comes to play. And as I said, every second game, every other guy steps up. It's just brilliant, mate. I mean, it's the perfect recipe for a knockout tournament, isn't it?
It's the perfect recipe for the perfect result. Yeah. You've said it all. I don't need to add to it. All I know is that for once... I feel
sick in my stomach, mate. I feel
For
sick.
once, I've been supporting a team and they've come through and they've delivered the bickies.
Yeah.
It's been a pretty long year, here, there and everywhere. Rugby World Cup, the Rugby League, beaten by the Kiwis. The Rugby League NRL, Bulldogs, hopeless. They're even trying to AI me into thinking we'll be 17th.
That's it.
And yet here we are, and Australia have a World Cup again. Fantastic. And everyone was thinking India. Huge, big stadium over there. Huge support. Absolutely mad for the game. Lost the one that counted. And that just makes it even sweeter.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do though is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable! Incredible!
The Platform.